Just when we need unity in the pro-life movement here and also around the world, we're starting to see more and more signs of division. One of these is the growing debate among us between what we call the whole life perspective and the pro-life perspective. The whole life perspective basically says that to be consistently and morally consistently pro-life, we need to bring an equivalent moral concern to the whole range of social injustices and not limit ourselves just to the unborn. Advocating for life, as one person said, at all stages, regardless of race, age, and level of ability. In this way, they seek to reshape the meaning of pro-life. Being pro-life doesn't mean championing life for the unborn life alone, but advocating for life at all stages. Everybody agrees with this statement at one level, but at a practical level, it doesn't work, and it overburdens our time and our resources, and it criticizes the pro-life effort in an unfair way, in my view. The basic problem is that it takes all the social injustices and puts them on a moral equivalency plane, treating all issues as if they're the same in kind. And I think this is incorrect. One evangelical leader has written, the issue of pro-life is incredibly divisive, but it cannot be boiled down to the lives of the unborn, when the lives of those who have been born are just as much at stake. No, they're not just as much at stake. That is the point. Unless you're talking about lynching, not just racial discrimination, or you're talking about the shooting of kindergartners, not just unequal education. Then you'd have a moral equivalency argument. The problem with this kind of thinking is that it's not real, it's not biblical. In the Bible, there's actually a kind of a prioritizing process involved. You know, you can prioritize what demands your most urgent effort according to two principles. Number one, the closer you are to an injustice, the more responsible you are to address it as best as you can. This is the principle of love your neighbor as yourself. The closer you are, the more responsible you are. A second prioritizing principle is the more a person is in danger, the higher priority they become for your care. Both of these come together in the parable of the Good Samaritan. Here's a man who's about to die, unjustly being beaten and left to die unless there's some direct intervention. The first two guys pass by and they put distance so they feel less responsible. But the Good Samaritan draws near because as he sees this man dying, he feels a responsibility to intervene. And that's really how the Bible helps us prioritize things. And I think that it's a good priority system. Imagine in Israel, people saying, well, now when it comes down to the cutting and burning of little babies in child sacrifice, it's a complex issue. But there are other matters that are just as important. No, that's foolish thinking. In biblical language, that represents the most preeminent moral crisis in Israel. It represents a hardness of heart, a rejection of God, a rejection of the value of human life. It reflects a rejection of God's moral standard. Never do this. I removed those nations from the land for this very reason, that they were committing child sacrifice, and I will treat you the same as I treated them. They're not morally equivalent when you have the intentional killing of innocent children. And that kind of argument doesn't fly really anywhere else in the world. I mean, I travel all over the world. This argument would never fly. You go to Cuba, for example. Here's a country where the people suffer greatly. Every kind of social injustice are piled one on top of another when it comes to Cuba. I've been there many times. They don't have the freedom of speech. They don't have economic opportunity. They have repression or downright oppression of the church. People are suffering there at every level of their life. My friend who's a doctor there, she gets paid $20 a month for being a doctor. And yet, when we went to Cuba and we started working with the church, we began to see that they immediately understood that they needed to start rescuing the unborn children in their country. Cuba is number one in the world in terms of abortion rates, and they immediately prioritized this as the focus of their energy. And so today, we're seeing more and more Christians in Cuba start to stand for life, start to help mothers, start to rescue them. They're prioritizing this. In Siboney, Cuba, I got these pictures over the weekend. Just a handful of women going out and rescuing mothers, bringing them into their church, providing them some ultrasound, providing them baby goods, helping them to trust in the Lord. Why? Because abortion, the intentional shedding of innocent blood, the Bible says is a moral priority. Rescue those who are being intentionally led to the slaughter. Proverbs 24:10 and 11. And this movement to rescue the innocent there, starting with helping moms, saving their babies, leading them to Christ, all of this has been sparked because the pastors in Cuba are beginning to ask four very simple questions, but they're life-changing questions. And here they are. Number one, what does the Bible say about human life, including life in the womb, so that we begin to treasure human life? Number two, what does the Bible say about the shedding of innocent blood, including life in the womb? This is where we get the prioritizing principle. They are human. They're being targeted for slaughter. Therefore, we need to come to the point of rescuing them. Number three, how do we bring the grace of the gospel to the guilt and the grief of abortion? Because everyone in Cuba, as it is in our own country, more and more have been touched by abortion. And we need to know the forgiveness of God that's available to us through Jesus Christ and through faith in the work of the cross. And number four, what has God called us to do to stop the shedding of innocent blood? Stopping the shedding of innocent blood is a moral priority for God, and that's the call to rescue the innocent, to be an army of good Samaritans, and to make that a priority in our community. So the pastors in Cuba, and hopefully more and more of the pastors in the U.S., will be rallying us all to make sure that the pro-life cause is our cause. Thanks.